What's up, everybody? In this video, I'm going to reveal 5 running backs I'm just not buying in on in 2024 fantasy football leagues. Let's get right to it. We start with Raheem Mostert of the Miami Dolphins. I don't want to play the what are the chances Mostert comes close to replicating last season's numbers card, but I'm going to go ahead and play that card right away. He had a career season seemingly out of nowhere at age 31. He's back now at age 32. He'll still be part of a backfield with Devon Achane and a rookie in Jalen Wright, but it would be an incredible outlier historically for Raheem Mostert to come close to replicating what he provided last season. Mostert played 530 snaps a year ago, only 2 more than he did in 2022. Last season, 22 total touchdowns for Mostert. 2022, 5 total touchdowns. Now, I'm not saying he's going to completely fall off a cliff. I'll probably have some Raheem Mostert exposure in some of my teams, but ultimately, he probably lands somewhere in the middle of those two extremes. I lean more a little bit on the pessimistic side, partially because he has a terrible health track record throughout his career. He's missed only 3 games in the last 2 years, but prior to that, he could seemingly never stay healthy as a member of the 49ers. At age 32, do we trust that this run of good luck health-wise is going to continue? I'm not sure I do. Considering Mostert finished as RB5 in PPR leagues last season, I will say the market is not wildly overreacting. It's not like anybody's clamoring for him to be a top 10 or top 15 or even top 20 running back. He's currently the RB 26 in the NFFC, which I think is fair. He's still in a wildly productive offense that should score a ton of points. He has a great coach, a great schemer in Mike McDaniel, but I'd rather solidify my RB room a little bit earlier, grab someone like Zamir White, David Montgomery, James Conner. I view all those guys as safer options, or even wait around and grab someone like Zach Moss in Cincinnati, who I really like. Mostert, he's a tough case because the market hasn't overreacted to last season's outlier production, but I find myself staying away anyway. Next on the list, Kyren Williams of the LA Rams. This wouldn't be a potential bust list without mentioning Kyren Williams. Like Mostert, fading Kyren Williams this season is inherently a bet that he won't replicate what he did in 2023. Williams led the NFL in both carries per game and yards per game last season, but very few running backs in the modern NFL are able to sustain that level of production year over year, that level of workload especially. Williams himself missed 5 games a year ago. He dealt with a foot injury as a rookie in 2022. He's been battling another foot issue early in camp, and of course, on top of those concerns, the Rams invested a 3rd-round pick in a really good running back in Blake Corum out of Michigan. Now, I'm not saying, we're going to be in some sort of 50-50 split here. This is still Kyren Williams' job to lose, but he's a big-time injury risk. Corum will absolutely be in the mix at the very least from day one. So I'm not going to go in and expect 19 carries per game out of Kyren Williams like we saw last season when he was healthy. We also have to consider the Rams' level of investment in Kyren Williams, who is a former 5th-round pick. Players like that tend to be treated as somewhat disposable, especially when the team invests a more valuable draft pick in another rookie running back like they did in Blake Corum. Again, I'm not saying Kyren Williams is going to lose his job outright to Blake Corum, but he's not going to have an 84% snap share when healthy like he did a year ago. Bottom line, a little too much downside here for a player that you have to grab in the 2nd round. If you're enjoying this video, please give it a like. Please subscribe to the RotoWire YouTube channel. That really, really helps us out a ton. We really appreciate it. Throw some comments in there as well. If you agree, maybe you disagree. It's probably more likely that you disagree, but we want to hear from you. Let's get some discussion going. We'll continue the list now. Number 3 on our list, Tony Pollard of the Tennessee Titans. Show of hands, please. Identify yourself if you were victimized by Tony Pollard in 2023. Okay, thank you. I am with you as an ally. Everything seemed to be falling into place for Tony Pollard in Dallas a year ago, finally getting his chance at a very clear number 1 role in a great offense. And what happened? Pollard regressed in just about every key metric. Yards per carry, yards after contact, explosive play rate. All those were down significantly compared to 2022. Pollard did manage a semi-respectable RB14 finish, but in terms of per game value, he was closer to the RB25 in PPR leagues, and that was in the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. Fast forward now to 2024, he heads to Tennessee to play with Will Levis and what was the league's worst offensive line in 2023. Tennessee did bring in another offensive lineman with his 1st-round pick. That's 2 years in a row they've gone O-line, so there's a chance that this line is better, but will it be enough that it really matters? We're probably looking at a league average or slightly below average line at best. That's not a mark in Tony Pollard's favor. And on top of that, Pollard is now in a very clear timeshare with Tyjae Spears, who profiles as a very similar type of runner, albeit maybe more explosive at this point in his career, especially given Pollard's 2023 metrics. Only time is going to tell how that split will break down, but as of right now, all indications are that it'll be 50-50. Spears and Pollard currently being drafted 8 picks apart, which is Not a great sign. Everybody's kind of throwing their hands up and saying we're not really sure which one of these guys we like. If both players stay healthy, it could end up being a stay away entirely, and both of those guys end up cannibalizing each other's fantasy value. But yeah, it's just not a situation that I want to be a part of right now. I'm staying away from Tony Pollard. Up next on our list, Austin Ekeler, now of the Washington Commanders. I'm just not buying in on this change of scenery for Ekeler. This feels like a bad fit. It's one of those, this guy just doesn't look right in that uniform type of situations. You know, you think back to Tracy McGrady when he signed with the Hawks, if you will. Last year was a disaster for the Chargers on a number of levels. It wasn't entirely Austin Ekeler's fault by any means, but Ekeler did take a notable step back in just about every metric. His yards per attempt fell off a cliff. Yards after contact dropped off significantly. His missed tackle rate plummeted to 46th among running backs in the NFL. And to be frank, Ekeler simply didn't pass the eye test for most of the season. We all remember the run against Green Bay, which of course made its rounds on Twitter, but the shiftiness, the elusiveness that made him such a great running back over the previous 5 seasons was noticeably absent for most of last year. Landing in Washington, it does present Ekeler with some level of opportunity, right? That the Commanders do have Brian Robinson, but he's not a true lead back. And to me, this has the makings of just an incredibly frustrating backfield in which both players probably end up disappointing most fantasy managers. Robinson's only going 4 picks later than Ekeler in NFFC ADP right now, much like Spears and Pollard, who we just talked about. To me, that's an indication that the market just doesn't really have a whole lot of confidence in either player running away with this job. Can Ekeler still be useful in PPR leagues? Sure, he can, but I just don't see the upside in what could very well be another very shaky Commanders offense with a rookie quarterback at the helm and Jaden Daniels. If I'm looking for RB depth around pick 100, give me Zach Moss, give me Devin Singletary. He's at least the clear starter for the Giants. I'd rather even chase the upside on someone like Tajay Spears. Finally, our 5th and final running back, Jonathon Brooks, rookie out of Texas for the Carolina Panthers. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to Jonathon Brooks. He's slippery, he's agile, he catches passes, he didn't overexert himself at the college level, but he's also coming off a torn ACL, and that happened in November. This isn't an injury that happened in August. I mean, it hasn't even been close to a calendar year since the injury occurred, and we still have no idea when he's going to be fully cleared and fully back up to speed. Panthers took him in the 2nd round for a reason, but to me, it's more of a future investment for a team that's still nowhere close to contending for the postseason. They have Chuba Hubbard in place, who I like as a late round value. He's going about 50 picks later than Jonathon Brooks in most drafts right now. They also still have Miles Sanders on the roster. Yes, he was terrible last season, but yes, he will still have at least a minor role in this offense. There's a case to be made that Brooks could absolutely be a second half hero once he's up to speed, but he's going too high for me, given the level of risk here on top of the probability that even once he's healthy, he's not stepping into this, workhorse, every down back role. Chuba Hubbard is still going to be a big piece in this Carolina backfield. And it's also worth noting that in all likelihood, this won't be an overly productive Carolina Panthers offense. Maybe Bryce Young does take a step forward this season, but the Panthers had 7 rushing touchdowns as a team last season. 7. They'll probably do better than that in 2024, but how much better? Probably not a whole lot better. It's not like Brooks is waiting in the wings to step in for the Dolphins or the Lions or the 49ers. We're talking about the Carolina Panthers here. In the 7th round of a fantasy draft, there's still too many backs on the board who I feel better about. If Brooks makes it past pick 100, then sure, maybe that risk reward equation becomes worth it. But at cost right now, I'm staying away from Jonathon Brooks in redraft leagues. I think 2025 is when he'll really make his mark in the NFL.